رحمن يا رحيم.
It is 1 minute past 12. You are listening to the Mid Morning Talk on Salam Media with me, Mari Mukwanda, on this lovely Wednesday, the 8th of June, 2022. Hope you are having a fantastic one. If you've just joined us, thank you for choosing Salam Media as your broadcast choice today. All right, so it is time for our segment with the Islamic Care Line, and joining me on the line is Zakiyah Hoosen, the Islamic Care Line Counsellor, here to give us insight on the upcoming webinar aimed at parents and young adolescents, aimed at parents of young adolescents and teens who are navigating a pathway to adulthood. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Zakiyah, and shukran for joining me.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakallah so much, Miriam, to you and to Salam Media and Islamic Care Line for having me with you today to speak about this.
Alhamdulillah. All right, let's get straight into the webinar. What is the Teenage Adjustment webinar series all about?
Okay, so the basis of the webinar came about when we worked with Islamic Care Line and identified that a lot of youth, especially between the ages of 13 to 18 or 19, are struggling with the adjustment process, to the challenges and learnings that teenagers might experience, whether that's physical changes, mental or emotional, social changes as well, the influences of peers, etc. And so we found that, might be informative to bring more awareness to the challenges and the learnings that you might face on your way to adulthood. And as, we brainstormed a couple of ideas and we came to realize that more importantly, it's an adjustment process, not just for the youth themselves, but also for the parents. So the adjustment webinar series that we're hosting now coming up on the 21st of June is actually for the parents of young adolescents who have identified that their teenagers or their children are struggling with some of these issues or finding it difficult to adjust. And so we'd like to bring awareness to the parents as well on how to go forward with this, how to, adjust their own behavior in response to what their child might be experiencing during this time.
Mm-hmm. And why should parents participate in this webinar?
I think that it's very important for parents to be aware that we live in different times. I think that modern society has come forth with its own challenges. And while all parents may have been a teenager at some point in their life, I think there's definitely a difference in being a teenager 5 or 10 years ago compared to what the youth of today are facing. So I think that if parents become more mentally aware, if they are psychoeducational informed about what's going on in society and how this impacts all of us, it might also help them to address certain patterns, to recognize where they can meet these challenges in a healthier and more functioning way.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's go back and discuss some of the challenges that adolescents and teenagers face today. I mean, obviously, we all lived through the times of adolescence and teenagehood, etc. And we had challenges back then, but some of the challenges are not really the same as what the youth would experience today.
Well, I think that, for one, social media has brought about an interesting challenge because while it gives us a great amount of access to one another and allows us to connect in different ways, unfortunately, there are also negative influences that we have where, it does lead to less socializing. It does lead to isolation and, that instance where we're not aware of exactly what children are getting involved in. Naturally, there are some protections that you can inhibit on your child, in terms of parental guidance, in terms of putting boundaries in place, limiting screen time, etc. But I think that social media has brought on one of the most difficult challenges to navigate through because it also gives children a sense of a fake reality that is happening out there in the world. We disassociate from what is actually going on because of how much time we spend on the screen. And unfortunately, it has come to that point where sometimes it is a quick fix. and not to mention the impacts that we've had over the last 2 years with COVID, where a lot of our lives have become situated around a digital platform. So I think that that's one of the things that we're struggling with. I think that among that also, parents might also find that children are seeking ways for instant gratification, that there's almost no patience in terms of what they might be experiencing or what they could be going through during this time. In terms of peer pressure, influences from friends and society. We have other issues that the community is grappling with, like substance abuse, there's social crimes, there's the exposure to pride and the LGBTQIA plus community that is becoming more and more prevalent in our society. So I think that parents are facing an overwhelming amount of challenges that weren't as prevalent a few years ago.
That's true. I mean, there's so many things that are going on out there, and as parents, you can only think like, "Oh, but what am I going to do? How can I help my child?" And exactly that. How can parents cope with these new challenges or these challenges that they adolescents and young teens are facing?
So that's exactly the type of question our webinar aims to address. I think if I could just highlight a few themes that we'll be touching on in the webinar is definitely looking at what youth development looks like in the current society. So we'll be addressing the physical, mental, emotional, social, as well as spiritual developments that parents could possibly anticipate, and how to adjust as a parent and also give your child that space to identify themselves. I think that we'll also be looking at the challenges like we spoke about, the social media, the exposures, etc. We'll also be talking about learning, which is a very important thing as well. As parents, I think it's important, to give your child that space to explore safely what it is that they're engaging with in society. And I think that's one of the most critical themes that we'll be discussing, is that there are healthy ways and safe ways to explore what is happening in society, hopefully that has a positive influence over your teenager and yourself, rather than the negative influences that we're experiencing. Among that, what we're looking at is helping parents identify coping mechanisms, like you say, in terms of how to pace themselves with parenting styles, how to adjust that as you have a child that is now growing into an adult. And finally, that is one of the last things we'll be touching, is how do you deal with this child that is now growing from child to an adult that is going to go out into society and make their own decisions and take accountability for those decisions. So we're hoping to touch in depth on each of those themes and bring a lot of awareness and some informative techniques for the parents to apply themselves in their faith.
Drug abuse is also a huge problem in our community, and I read an article recently that it's a growing trend among school-going kids. So is this also an issue that will be covered?
I think that we won't be covering drug abuse itself as the issue. And might I just mention at this point that we are looking at making this a series so that we can tackle more issues in future webinars. But in this specific webinar that's coming up on the 21st of June, we will be looking at the influences that make children victims to these types of social crimes, if I can say it in that way. And like you say, it is very prevalent among school-going children. And unfortunately, we have this society that is unaware of how to confront this issue or how to tackle it. So we'll be looking at the root causes of what leads up to that. What signs can you look out for in terms of a teenager that might be going awry, that might be influenced in that way from society or from their peer group, etc., and how a parent can maybe step in before it escalates to that point. But in future, we definitely will be having more webinars where we can speak to specific issues like the drug abuse, like being exposed to pride at such a young age, or peer pressure, etc.
All right. Now, just roughly, without giving away too much information, when should parents step in, and when should they let their young kids be?
Okay, so that's an interesting question, and I hope I don't give away too much here. I think that as we go through the different stages of growth and the different ages, you'll find that your child can handle more responsibility. I think it's also on the parent to assess, the trust and the connection with your child. And I think that ultimately, as a parent, you in your gut feeling will know what your child is capable of and what you can trust them with. So I think not to ignore the instincts that mums and dads have, is to just trust yourself and slowly give your child more responsibility and raise that accountability factor as well. But there definitely is more we could speak to, and there's a very neat technique that I hope to equip the parents with during the webinar.
All right, so please provide us with information about the webinar. When will it be taking place? Is there a fee involved, etc.?
Okay, so the webinar will be taking place on Tuesday, that is the 21st of June, 2022. It'll be taking place in the evening from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. and there is a cost of 50 Rand involved. We would like you to book your spot and register by the 17th of June to avoid any disappointment. And you can email the proof of your payment to islamiccareline@gmail.com, or alternatively, you can contact 078-727-1334 for more information.
Mm-hmm. All right, Zakiyah, any final thoughts and advice, words of encouragement why parents should attend this webinar?
I think that we are moving into a society where mental health awareness is becoming more prevalent and more open, which is very encouraging to see. And I think that as parents themselves, want this help and support for their children and want them to grow, into capable human beings and responsible human beings within our society, I think it's also important for parents to attend these to understand how to engage themselves for better improvement and understanding and for their own self-awareness. So I would like to encourage all parents, whether you're a first-time parent of a teenager or whether you've already raised one and you're just looking for more insight, or even if you've got nieces or nephews within your family, I think that it's an informative webinar that is going to provide a lot of insight for you as a parent and might just help you engage a lot better with your child.
Mm-hmm. All right. It seems like it's going to be an interesting one. And I think it's time parents should start talking about the issues that are affecting their teenagers instead of brushing it under the carpet and pretending as if they don't exist. And, like they're kids and they're going to grow up and they're not. But if you do not tackle the problem now, it's only going to become worse as they grow older.
Definitely. And I love that you said that, that you mentioned, Miriam, that sometimes, we just sweep it under the carpet, like as if it doesn't exist. And unfortunately, this was something that, was being done in the past. But I think that if I could appeal to parents, who are listening and others as well, is that as much as, like I said, everyone was a teenager at some point. But if you could find it in yourself to go back to that and imagine how challenging that was for you in the time where you were a teenager, it has become 10 times harder for the teenagers of today. So just some insight. I do work at a high school. I mostly counsel teenagers on a daily basis. And I think one thing that I find is parents should be more tolerating of the idea that teenagers also have a level of stress. They have a threshold for emotional and mental health issues as well. And I think if we can find that compassion of, my child is allowed to be stressed, they're allowed to have issues, they're allowed to face obstacles within their capacity, then we might find that grace where we're able to have a good connection between parent and child. And I think that, just that idea of your child has also never been a teenager before. It's as confusing for them as it might be for you having a child as a teenager. So I think if we just move through this with a lot of connection and a lot of grace and understanding, it's definitely one where parents do get through this phase.
Mhm. Well, parenting a teenager is not easy for sure. I mean, we always think that the toddler ages are the most challenging ones, but until you
Yeah.
parent a teenager, that's when you realize that no, I want my toddler back. All right,
I think
Zakiyah, right
I
then,
think
we
terrible
look.
the terrible twos have turned into the terrible 13. But hopefully not after you attend this webinar.
I hope so. I hope our parents will get some better insight and will be able to navigate into this whole teenage adjustment, issues, or for the lack of a better word.
Definitely.
Uh, Zakia, we thank you for your time right now and for giving us this information. I will share the banking details with our listeners, and shukran so much for your time.
Shukran to you too, Mariam, and to the team, and for everyone out there listening. We hope to see some familiar faces in the crowd on the 21st of June. Jazakallah khair.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
The 21st of June 2021, that is the date. It is a Tuesday, and this will be taking place in the evening after Isha Salah. So you don't have to worry about not making it on time. It's 7 to 8 p.m. We know during the winter months, Isha Salah is earlier. And the cost is 50 Rand per person, and you need to register by the 17th of June 2022 to secure your spot. It is only an hour, it's an hour for you to take the time to learn how to better deal with your adolescent, with your teenager who is adjusting to the person that they are becoming, this young adult. This is a webinar for parents of young adolescents and teens. So it's not for parents of toddlers. Maybe they'll decide to have one for you, but don't worry, you can cope better than being a parent of a teenager. And in fact, toddlers listen. The program is an interactive space to explore the challenges and learnings of adulthood, helping them to navigate their pathway to adulthood, and also talk about the challenges that they currently face. And we know that we do not have the same challenges that teenagers are facing today. We have even more challenges. There are even more challenges now. And then, you'll say things like, "Oh, when I was your age and we didn't do this and we didn't do that," or our parents would do. Yeah, the times have changed and things have changed as well. We have to move with the times and we have to parent according to the current times. And what worked back then is not going to work right now, especially with the punishment of beating up, etc. You need to find better ways to punish or to discipline, rather, your teenager. The link will be provided upon payment received. The banking details are as follows. It's HBZ Bank Limited. That's the bank. The account name is Islamic Care Line. Islamic Care Line is one word. The account number is 119011220001. The branch code is 570105. The reference, youth webinar plus your name, and you can send proof of payment to Islamic Care Line at gmail.com or to 078 727 1334. That's 078 727 1334. If you would like this poster, we can share it with you on our WhatsApp. So send us a message and we will share this this poster with you for the banking details and other information. So don't despair. And for more information on more upcoming webinars, you can contact Islamic Care Line as well. It is 11 or rather 12:20. You are listening to the Mid-Morning Talk on Salam Media. We will be right back.